Hello, good morning. It's on the nose, and I trust that you work it out well today. It is a beautiful day that the good Lord has afforded us. It is the 27th of August 2018, and we have a lot lined up for you today here on AM Live. Of course, today is Monday, and every Monday we focus on what is happening on people and politics. Today we'll be turning our focus with, of course, the happenings in IEBC. That will be much later in the course of a program with our panelists. And of course, they're not here. Being a Monday, and of course, our weekend also, sometimes people are bound to be late. But we'll be holding court this morning with Professor Nyang Nyongo, who is the governor of Kisumu. Also, we'll be having with us here in studio, Jeremiah Kioni, who is a member of parliament from Daragwa, also the chair of CLC. We'll be holding court this morning as well with Senator Samuel Ogisio. He's the Senator of West Pokot. Also, we'll be having with us this morning Governor Mudomi Njuki from Tharaka Nithi, and also we'll be here in studio with it's eluding me right now, Okongo Mogani, who is a senator from Nyamira as well. So you can chime in as far as the politics of the past week has been. Or you can hit us on Twitter. AM Live NTV is a Twitter handle. AM Live NTV is a profile name on Facebook, and 20686 is our SMS portal. Now, the goings on at the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission border on the comedy of the absurd. Unfortunately, IEBC is not the institution where one can allow that tomfoolery to play out. It is an institution charged with the sacred duty of presiding over elections, determining the leadership of the nation from the grassroots to the top. It must be beyond reproach. Its dignity must be jealously guarded on. On Friday, two commissioners, Ms. Connie Maina and Ms. Margaret Mwachanya, who had quit the commission in March, returned to office, presumably to assume their previous duties. Now, this is not acceptable. First, it is immoral for the two commissioners to purport to resume duty after a 5-month hiatus and having left the commission acrimoniously with blistering attacks on the chairman and the institution. It's marks of contempt of the public and the institution itself. Does it mean they have been earning from the public coffers without working? Doesn't that amount to fraud, in which case punishable? What happened to integrity and personal dignity? An argument will be advanced that High Court recently ruled that the resignation of the commissioners, including Paul Kurgat, was unprocedural, hence cannot stand in law. Fair enough, but legalese aside, in practice, the mere fact that one puts in a letter of resignation and in this case makes a public pronouncement about it is a statement of discontent with an institution, hence cannot continue working there. It is a matter of public service which requires public trust. Once an individual declares he or she has no faith in the institution, how can the public trust him or her to work there and deliver on the mission? Mr. Chibukati has to clear the air over the status of the two commissioners. Institutions must be respected. Individuals who do not exhibit personal integrity should not be allowed to serve in the public office. Importantly, it is time to commence the process of remaking IEBC. It cannot be allowed to continue as it is. And of course, we want to hear from you. Hit us on Twitter, AM Live. What do you reckon about the shenanigans at IEBC right now? It is a house of comedy, and we want to hear from you as well. This morning, right, we don't allow such institutions to be a kiosk where you can just walk in and out, of course, and just continue without any burden of conscience after you've resigned. Let's see what is on the front page of the dailies today. We begin with the Daily Nation. This is what is headlining the front page of the Daily Nation. Top judge to be arrested over sleaze. This is what is headlining the front page of the Daily Nation. Supreme Court judge will be the highest judicial officer to face graft charges. So the pendulum is swinging every which way, right? And we can see this is now, the rec ball is on the judges this morning. Shock move as the war on corruption gathers steam. Investigators and prosecutors are poised to move into the judiciary in an effort that is likely to shock Kenya's legal and political landscape. The suspect will likely face charges of abuse of office, illegally receiving money and getting favors from officials of a collapsed Imperial Bank. That story continues on page 4 of the Daily Nation this morning. Also, Uhuru meets Trump, but what is the deal? Today's meeting at the White House will be the first by President Kenyatta at the bilateral level. It is only the second formal meeting for an African leader at the Trump White House and points to Kenya's increasingly significant role in securing the region, one of Washington's obvious focus areas. It will also be the start of the high-level meetings with global leaders in 10 days. British Prime Minister Theresa May is due in Nairobi on Thursday before Mr. Kenyatta meets Chinese leader Xi Jinping in Beijing during the China-Africa Summit. You have this story well fleshed out for you on page 2 and 3 of the Daily Nation. President's diary in 10 days, increasing investment, bolstering trade and securing peace in the region are the overall issues on President Kenyatta's plate over the next 10 days. You can read the rest of the story inside the Daily Nation on page 3 or page 2 and 3. Sonko tiffs with Minority Whip. Peter Imwatok has fashioned himself as the biggest critic of the Nairobi governor, and criticism is met with much more than just as a disapproving grin at Sonko's grouchy City Hall. You can follow that story inside the Daily Nation on page 19. Also remember to grab a copy today of the Junior Sport, where we have a comprehensive KCP revision materials this and every month. Education is a passport to the future, for tomorrow belongs to those who prepare for today. So you can find that story inside the Junior Sport. You, the young kid who's preparing to go to school this morning, there is your copy. Okay, let's see what we have on the front page of the Standard today. Schools reopen, but learning is not certain. NAT Secretary General insists that teachers' strike is on as Kuppet Boss and Teachers Service Commission maintain. Learners, I should say, will report back starting tomorrow as scheduled. And this story continues on page 4 of the Standard this morning. We have a bite here from him. He says, we've made it very clear. There are things we are intending to do following a fruitless meeting with the Teachers Service Commission last week. That story, as I've mentioned, you have it on page 4 of the Standard. John McCain, US war hero and maverick, prayers and respect as well honors senator who died on Saturday, aged 81. These all tributes. You can follow that story on page 3 or inside the Standard. State Miles, another Emma Kiba attempt. National Treasury has set aside 250 million shillings kitty to ensure the success of the bond and has also made changes, I should say, in the process after last year's failed bid. You can follow the story on page 27 of the Standard this morning. Let's see what we have on the front page of the Star. This is your splash. Musalia quietly rolls out his 2022 plans. Mudavadi has privately been meeting leaders from Uhuru and Raila's strongholds. The former VP is eyeing Central, Rift Valley, Coast, Nairobi and Nyanza regions. This story continues on page 4 and 5 of the Star. Also, there are no cracks in Jubilee Party. Deputy President William Ruto dismissed claims of cracks in Jubilee. He said the party was united and firmly under one leadership, Uhuru Kenyatta. Ruto said JP was conceived, I should say, and formed to unite Kenyans and cannot have camps, as widely reported. This story continues on page 8 of the Star this morning. Also, MPs summoned Chebukati to discuss disarray. A parliamentary committee has summoned IEBC Chairman Wafula Chebukati for a meeting on Thursday to discuss the state of affairs at the electoral agency. Chebukati will appear before the Justice and Legal Affairs Committee chaired by Baringo North MP William Cheptumo. And that story is tucked away on page 2 of the Star this morning. Also, Uhuru to meet 3 world leaders in 10 days on 3 continents. National exams top agenda as schools open for third term. The second names team to probe senators in 100 million shillings bribe claim. All that in the Star. The People Daily is up next, and this is your splash today. Hurdles greet return of IEBC 3. Rude welcome. Riddle as Commissioners Paul Kurgat, Margaret Mwachanya and Connie Maina attempt surprise comeback. Did they even resign to start with? That's a probing question. You have that story on page 6 of the People Daily this morning. Also, Jubilee doesn't need outside help, says Ruto. We're doing okay. DP tells party members to ignore prophets of doom, working to bring discord and disharmony. Instead, seek to consolidate gains. Uhuru said to meet Trump today at the White House. Talks between the two presidents to focus on bilateral trade, regional insecurity, especially in Somalia, South Sudan. And that story continues on page 4 of the People Daily this morning. Taifa Leo up next. Wanatakaje? That's a probing question there. Wabunge Mashariki wabunge mashirika ya kijamii washutushwa na hatua ya makamishna kurejea kazini. That story continues on page 2 of Taifa Leo this morning. Business Daily is holding this particular splash for you this morning. World Bank's 581 billion shillings loans now surpass Chinese debt. Treasury's 3-month borrowing spree hands Washington-based lender top spot. The Treasury took 54 billion shillings World Bank loans in a 3-month borrowing spree that has seen the Washington DC-based lender regain its top spot above China in the ranking of Kenya's biggest creditors. A new Treasury report puts the World Bank's total lending to Kenya at 581 billion shillings as at the end of June, slightly ahead of China's 557 billion shillings. We follow this story on page 4 of the Business Daily. Also, politicians' top credit bureaus loan queries. That story continues on page 4 of the Business Daily. Uhuru in the US, you can see him here. President Uhuru Kenyatta receives a bouquet of flowers from Leilani Jemwetich Kipto on arrival at his hotel in Washington, D.C. at the start of his official visit to the U.S. He will hold talks with President Trump today. That is what will be following also for you today. Also, bank signatures rounds tolls Homo Bay's 700 million shillings project. A row of bank account signatories has stalled a 700 million shillings project intended to finance the building of water pans and market access roads in Homo Bay. That story continues on page 4 of the Business Daily this morning. Also, Foreign Affairs secret 438 million shillings account revealed. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs is on the spot over expenditure of 437.8 million shillings used on an undisclosed campaign in the year to June 2017. You have this story on page 6. All this from the Auditor General. Let's continue and see what we have also across the region. We can begin in Tanzania with the Citizen. Pension funds spends 2 trillion shillings on investments in 1 year. Pension funds pumped 1.97 trillion shillings. This is Tanzanian shillings into investments in 2016-2017 financial year alone, taking the total sum spent to 11.2 trillion shillings. This story continues on page 2 of the Citizen today. And also, Nagagwa promises a new beginning. That story continues on page 2 of the Citizen. John McCain, US war hero and political maverick, dies. The story is on page 8. Cement makers deny forming cartel as prices drop. That is another story that you want to follow on page 2 of the Citizen in Tanzania. Also, Mwananchi is up next. Let me try and lift that quickly for you. In Tanzania, mahama ya vyama ya mkera Askofu Shaw. That is a splash. You can follow the story on page 3. Also, Makonda atoa onyo kwa atakayenunua makontena yake 20. That is the story that you want to follow also inside the Mwananchi in Tanzania. Hongera sana Rais wa Zimbabwe. And you can see them here. This was a previous meeting that they had. It's a file picture there. And that is in Mwananchi today. We can head over now to Uganda, where we have the Daily Monitor. General Kayihura names sureties. He made his choice when none of the generals at his rank will bail him out. That is the splash today in Uganda. Also, 37 million shillings raised for cancer machine. Thousands of people in different parts of the country participated in the 7th edition of the Rotary Cancer Run yesterday. More than 37 million shillings was raised during the run. Proceeds will be used to acquire a linear accelerator, which is radiotherapy equipment. You can follow that story also inside the Daily Monitor in Uganda. Obituary, Dr. Sheila Ndianambangi, an anti-tobacco crusader. You can follow her story on page 3. She passed on. Also, cancer survivor, still hopeful after 4 heart operations. This is on Healthy Living, a pull-out magazine inside the Daily Monitor. And Makerere hit by lack of professors. The problem, sources say, is caused by poor succession planning. Among other problems, you can find also that not a problem on page 2 of the Daily Monitor if you're waking up in Uganda. Allow me to cross over now to Rwanda, where we have the New Times. We can see what is on the front page as well. Rollout of e-certificates to ease services delivery is a splash today. You have probably probably experienced the inconvenience of having to walk from office to either get the marriage or birth certificate required to apply for certain services like visa, scholarship, or that dream job. This could change following the government's effort to avail these services online. You can follow that good news in Rwanda on page 3 of the New Times. Also, UR Defense decision to move campuses again is on page 4 and 5 of the New Times in Rwanda. Green Party campaigns in Huye, vows to revamp city. You know about that campaigning that is ongoing in Rwanda. You can follow the story on page 8 of the New Times. Let's see what we have this week on the front page of the East African. And this is what is your splash today. The front page of the East African. Bobby Wine's spectre is haunting Museveni. Protest row Kampala as well condemns rapper politicians' brutalization. You have the full report on page 4 of the East African. Trade tops agenda of Huru visit. Post-Goa US plan bilateral trade deals with a few African countries. That is a story that you want to follow also on page 5 of the East African. Also, why Fly 540 stopped flying to South Sudan. Find all the gritty details here by Alan Olingo on page 6 of the East African this week. Allow me lastly to show you the magazines as we have them here. If you've not grabbed a copy of the Nairobi Business Monthly, this is what is on the front page. Asmara Accord spells doom for Kenya. That is a story. Ethiopia forging an economic partnership with Eritrea. Was Kenya's only remaining partner in the Lapset project. Where does this leave Nairobi's debt-laden government? That is the Nairobi Business Monthly. Also, we do have the Nairobi Law Monthly, and this is what has been holding the front page of the Nairobi Law Monthly. The set capture, the Ryan Republic. That is on the front page of the Nairobi Law Monthly, as you can see it. And also, we have editorial cartoons for you this morning as well. We begin with what we do have in the Daily Nation today. According to IGAD Development Partnership, which way to go, right? We are torn in between, as we've mentioned before, in 10 days, the president will be globe-trotting, of course, going to 3 continents to meet world leaders. There we have today, the meeting will be happening with Donald Trump. Later also this week will be have Theresa May in the country, and also the president will be headed to China, right, where there is a summit ongoing. We'll give you all the gritty details of this also in our news bulletin this morning. But which way to go, right? Everyone is gagging to get a piece of Kenya. That is what IGA has actually drawn for us today. Let's see what we have also today in the Star. And this is what Victor has drawn for you today, right? Portas prepares to meet POC, that is the President of the Republic of Kenya. So which particular face, right, will he or facade will he be wearing today? So you can see his cabinet is full. Fake news, shithole, America first. That one I can't really decipher it as well. But Drain the Swamp as well is one of the faces maybe he can also wear today as he's meeting the President of the Republic of Kenya. That is President Uhuru Kenyatta. That is according to Victor. Let's see what also Garo has drawn for us inside the Standard, right? This may be also part of the discussion. First, I want Obama's original birth certificate. 2, your ICC lawyers' contacts, please. Right. This is what we have on the front page, or the editorial page of the Standard, the editorial cartoon. Stano has drawn this for us today in the People Daily. Graft and high cost of living is ripping Wanjiku apart, and this is what has been absolutely captured by Stano inside the People Daily this morning. And I guess those are the ones I have for you. But from the archives today, as President Uhuru Kenyatta is meeting Donald Trump today, we hack back also to 1987, where we have President Moi who was meeting Ronald Reagan. That was in 1987. President Donald Moi with President Ronald Reagan during the Kenya's leader's visit to the United States. This was in March 1987. Maybe I can just go back to my panelists a bit to tell us more about this particular meetings. President Uhuru Kenyatta is there today. There also was President Moi. That was later or way back in 1987. Also, President Mwai Kibaki and the First Lady, Lucy, also met the President of the United States. We can just begin from our panelists this morning. Allow me to introduce them to you. We have with us Professor Anyang' Nyong'o, who is the governor of Kisumu. Also, we do have with us this morning Senator Okongo Omogeni, who is a senator from Nyamira. We have as well Jeremiah Kioni, who is a member of parliament from Daragwa and the chair of COC. Right, just going back to that particular picture, if we may have it back on our screen so that we can, of course, refresh our memory. Professor Anyang' Nyong'o, do you remember this particular meeting with...
No, I don't really remember it.
You don't really remember it?
What year was that?
This was in 1987. This is Ronald Reagan,
the
former U.S. President Daniel Arap Moi.
Okay.
In 1987. But of course, the thing is, from these particular meetings, what really has made Kenya different? And from maybe the deliberation, beside their bilateral talks, do we have any discernible difference really being accrued from these particular meetings?
Well, I mean, Kenya has always been very close to the U.S., both governments, I think, for a long time, since the 60s, actually.
Yes.
I think in the early 90s, during the struggle for multi-party democracy,
yes,
there was a strain in Kenyan U.S. relations, but it was more confined to diplomatic circles in Nairobi. And of course in Washington, there was a policy at that point in time to have democratic reforms in Africa, pursued within the framework of U.S. interest, of course.
Yes.
But I think winding the clock forward to now, I think the two countries have a common interest in the fight against international terrorism. Following the bombing of the American embassy in Nairobi and Dar es Salaam during the ambassadorship of Bushnell, I think. Up to now, I think that cooperation in the fight against terrorism has brought the two governments pretty closely together.
Yes.
To coordinate strategies, policies, and I think U.S. support for Kenya's military is quite pronounced, I think. So again, at that level, there are a lot of common things to discuss. But secondly, I think U.S. economic interests are also important in this regard. I think the Americans have been rather worried by the Chinese economic entry into Africa in a big way.
Yes.
The standard gauge railway perhaps is supposed to be merged by the highway from Mombasa to Nairobi. I hope that goes up to Busia and Malaba by the Americans.
Yes.
And I think the terms of doing that highway in the interest of Kenya is to me, is a controversial thing. And the manner in which it's going to be financed. So if President Uhuru could discuss with Trump how best to build a triple, double or so carriageway from Mombasa to Busia, all the way through Kampala to Rwanda and so on, that would be important. I am not one of those who thinks it's either the railway or the road. I think it's both.
It's both.
It's important to have both a fast-speed road, well done, durable for many years, as well as a good, cost-effective railway line from Mombasa to Nairobi through to Uganda and Rwanda. I'm not quite sure myself that the way in which the SGR was done was the way we perceived it, conceived it during the NAC government and through the coalition government. But that's perhaps a discussion for another day. But at the moment, I think if President Uhuru can discuss that particular issue with Trump and conclude it in the interest of Kenyans, I think that would be important.
Right. Okongo Omogeni, just looking at that particular editorial cartoon there by Iga, in 10 days, the president will be globetrotting. Of course, today is in the U.S. We'll have Theresa May here in the country, and he'll be headed to China as well. So we can see the SGR, but they're trying to derail, of course, that particular wagon, right, to go on their way. This is just, of course, a tongue-in-cheek a cartoon there by Iga in today's Daily Nation.
Yeah, I think revisiting the photo that I saw, President Reagan and former President Moi, there really has been a very big shift on American policy towards Kenya. I think in those days, America was more of trying to police, to be a big brother in Kenya, trying to push for democracy and good governance. But I think the entry of China into Africa has made the Americans to rethink their foreign policy and their relationships and engagements with African states. And I think the shift now is towards economic engagement rather than putting issues of governance in the forefront.
Yes.
And I think we must, thank the Chinese, because without the Chinese really challenging the American dominance in economic affairs in Africa, maybe we wouldn't have had the kind of engagements that we're having. But I think the bigger picture also, is the acceptance of Kenya in the global world.
Yes.
That a nation that can engage the big, economic tigers of this world. The fact that, the focus is not just to come to Africa and engage South Africa, but that you can also look at Kenya as a country that America can engage in terms of economic partnership. I think that is a statement that this country has really come a long way. And I hope there will be something for us to gain as a country.
Yes.
It's exciting, to see that for the first time we can dream as a country of having a dual road all the way from Mombasa to Malaba. And I think in terms of strategic advantage, we'll have set ourselves ahead of the pack in the East African community. So I think the engagement by the president is commendable, and I pray hard that the Americans will engage in terms of economic engagements with us as a country by being a country that will put integrity ahead of everything. There has been a lot of suspicion that some Chinese companies really compromise Kenyan government officials. So I hope that the entry of the Americans will raise the bar, so that we have prices that good value for our money.
Thank you.
I mean, yes.
Right, thank you. Let's hear from Governor Muthoni Njuki. Good morning, good to see you, and thank you for joining us as well. But looking at today's editorial cartoon in the Standard as well, maybe this will be another topic that that we'll be discussing, right? Of course, with our Tang's family in Chick. First, I want Obama's original birth certificate. 2, your ICC lawyers' contacts as well. Of course, we know that particular big debate with Russia that is happening, them meddling in the elections as well. So, yeah, good to see you. Of course, your expectation as well, as far as President Uhuru Kenyatta is concerned with him paying a visit at the White House today.
Thank you. It's good to be back, Debarl, and good morning, everyone. I want to, of course, give a thumbs up to our president for being probably the second president from Africa to visit
All right.
the White House.
I'm sorry, Governor Muthoni, I think your mic has a problem. Let me just cross over. We'll come back to you and to cross over to Jeremiah Kioni so that I can try and rectify that microphone. Jeremiah, looking at that editorial cartoon, if you may just have it back, please. Yeah.
Thank you, Debarl, but I don't think any of the issues the cartoonists would want discussed really would take our president all the way to the US. I think the issues that were raised by the governor and the senator, Governor Professor Anyang' Nyong'o and Senator Mungene, are the issues that our president will be preoccupied with, and it is also crucial for us as a country to be invited to the White House. Is not something that we should take lightly. It's something that is a recognition that we have a role that we can play within the African continent. And I think the best that we can do is to try and exploit it for the benefit of Kenyans. If it is for the purposes of getting the infrastructure development even moved faster, that will still be beneficial. I know we had the issues of Mitumba, which we wanted to do away with, but looked like it requires renegotiation and thinking of how we approach it. And if such issues are put on the table and explained to the president, then as a country we start to gain. And again, picking on what the center was saying is that it is important that we allow these other competing development partners, so that in the event that one of the area partners has taken advantage of us, we can be able to balance it out and perhaps even look for alternative ways of raising capital for our development undertakings that we have in the country. And I want to agree that it is not, if we can also get somebody to fund the roads, to run alongside the railway line, the SGR, it's useful for this country. Right. It's expensive for now, but in the long run, I think it will pay off.
But that has been the debate. Of course, we've crossed that particular red line. Now that we know that the trade or the loans, the way we're indebted right now, has hit that 5 trillion shillings, heading to 6 trillion shillings. Senator Pogisho, do you think this is sustainable? And we don't know what particular deals we're going to have from here today. We don't know what deals we're going to have from Theresa May as well. And we don't know what deal that we're going to have with President Xi Jinping.
Well, I think, first of all, Debarl, good morning.
Good morning,
I feel like we are privileged as a nation, first of all, for our president to be sitting there in White House. But there is always a feeling that Kenya is doing very well. The impression that Kenya is doing very well, economically and politically. And those are the things that matter, really, that you are stable. Even if you get into these relationships, you must show that you are, first of all, stable politically and also economically, and that the fact that you can be a trusted friend, because the issues going to be raised will definitely be inclusive of security in the region and the way we do our business here. So I do believe that the fact that we are turning west, yes, after staying so long in the east with our businesses will change the way that the standards of doing our business, as a colleague has said here. There are so many things that are of American engineering, American scholarship, American commerce, yes, that will benefit us quite a lot if we work with the West. Also, I think the best thing to talk about is in that cartoon, which I saw there, is for us to ignore that, because it shows us that Kenyan lawyers are very good, extremely good. If he wants a lawyer, he can come here and get one. But the issue of certificate, that we don't know about that.
All right. So, bearing the fact that we know the personality of Donald Trump, we never know which way he will swing. All right. That just yes. Could we just hear from Governor Mudomi Njuki, because his mic had a problem, so that we can then we continue with you, Professor. Sorry. Yes, Governor.
Thank you. I think someone tried to derail my mic. It's good to be back. I think it's just being welcome back. Debarl, thank you. It's good to be back. Let me echo the words of my colleagues in, of course, commending our president for being the second from Africa to be invited by the White House, by Donald Trump.
Yes.
Of course, there is so much in the basket to discuss that it isn't for Kenya and America as per se. But I want to look at things a bit differently in terms of where Kenya is in terms of relationship in business compared to where we used to be a long time ago, when America just used to look at Kenya as a place where they can just have ties that have got strings that are attached, and if they bring any aid or business deal, it has also have to have a political connotation. Of course, by Kenya going to east, that of course, became a challenge to both the UK and US, and the ties that are there between China and Kenya have been envied by most countries that used to do business with Kenya,
yes, because
there was now a platform of comparison where can we be able to get the best deal. But I want to tell the viewers today that the business that America does with China is far, compared to the other parts of the world, it's the biggest traffic actually in terms of business deals. And therefore, America trying to fight for space in Kenya with China on that line, it may not really be what America is looking at as the priority per se. I want to think about other things that are happening around Africa that America would like to use Kenya's stability and of course the power to be able to come as assumed our leader. What is happening in Somalia, of course, being our neighbors. What is happening in the refugee camp. Yes. I have seen that they have people who are lobbying for Kenya to be urged not to send away refugees and also to be able to accommodate more. But I also want to look at the business that is existing, and especially the new one between America and Kenya. Yes. I want to remind you that this is one of the rarest things to happen from Africa. That Kenya is going to be one of those countries where we have a direct flight from Nairobi to America come I think September and October. And that is going to open a new avenue for business. The flowers that we used to send to Amsterdam, of course, without a direct flight to UK or London, now we'll be able to get to America fresh. Thank you. And of course, I saw a lot of business in terms of textile and clothing that is coming from Kenya to America. And the ties that are there, we should be able to see, our president should be able to negotiate. What can we be able to bring to make America be able to take more? Because at the moment, if you look at our imports and exports, we are having a very small percentage of what America is actually giving us. It's very far from having anything like a balance, because we take very little, but they give us so much. And on particular interest, especially to our farmers, is coffee. Coffee, Kenyan coffee finds its way into the American market in very large quantities. However, it fetches so little money. Thank you. Reason being, it is not branded as Kenyan coffee.
But we need to ask ourselves a question, because this question would be looking at the US. Of course, we have also very good salutary effort coming from the US with the African Growth Opportunity Act, AGOA, and other, of course, relations and bilateral relations that we do have with the US when it comes to security matters as well. But the biggest question with China would be the trade imbalance that we had, the trade deficit imbalance that is so skewed on Chinese favor. Should we be looking at the East also oblivious of the fact that we have also some unethical business practices from the Chinese community when it comes to intellectual property as well, internationally? I mean, some of their business practices have been questioned. So should we just, close our eyes and go full steam ahead, regardless of some of these practices that they have been raised, intellectual property, inhumane way of treating some of, the workers? We've had cases of employees here in the country as well who have complained of being shortchanged by the Chinese and being looked down upon by the Chinese community in the country. But so because we're being given and we have a pail in hand and we're looking for aid, we should close our eyes, disregard these practices?
Lana, the mistake is not the Chinese, the mistake is ours. I mean, it's the duty of the unions and the government to protect the workers. If the Chinese come here with bad business practices and they practice them for a year without being reprimanded, it's our mistake. As my governor says, the trade between us and the Americans and the Chinese is minuscule if we talk about international moving of money and business. So we can only go forward, we can't go backwards. Yes. And I think what we need to do is to intensify our exports by improving productivity in the nation. Take, for example, AGOA. We have a latitude of exporting through AGOA up to about $5 billion worth of goods, but we are only exporting about 500 something million. So there's still a big margin to go. Cotton that is grown in this country would find its way if it is transformed into apparel and exported to the US. But at the moment, what we do, we got apparel from the East, we stitch them here in the export-free zone, then in Athi River, and then export them to the US.
Yes.
Which is not too much value addition. I think I blame ourselves, for example. In my own country, we have a big opportunity to grow cotton and export cotton products to the US through AGOA, but we haven't done it.
Okay.
So I think what we need to do is just look at the opportunity that exists in increasing trade between us and the US and China, and do the right thing, not blame them for coming here. Chinese coming here and engaging in practices that are unethical. I mean, they're doing it in our country, so I blame them. We should blame ourselves. But I was going to say something more in there.
Yes.
I think while the president is there, he should talk to the president of the US about visa policies. I mean, the amount of money Kenyans pay here at the American embassy to get a visa is phenomenal. And then you go there, you book, you pay, and then you go for an interview, you are turned down, you have to apply again. I mean, these are poor folks, students, mothers, whatnot. But in the US, Americans get Kenyan visas very easily. And there's not that kind of punitive action where you apply, whatnot. I think this should be discussed so that there is equality between us and the Americans. The attitude that people are struggling so much to go to the US that you can go for an interview and lose a hell lot of money to apply again, I think it's absolutely unethical, because the amount of money we pay here is enough to run 4 embassies in Africa.
Thank you. Later, Congo Mogini.
I think you have raised a very critical issue here. And I think as a country, we really need to do a lot to defend our sovereignty. I don't think Kenyans can go to China and do what the Chinese do here. And I know if you look at Nation, page 8 of today's Nation, there is a story there where with a sub-headline, they are saying, tour guides decry Chinese invasion.
Yeah, that's
you know, you can't believe it that as a country, we are not just inviting the Chinese to come to Kenya and build our roads. But look, the Chinese are now coming in and taking over, the business of doing tour guide business in this country. I mean, do you want to say that Kenyans don't have the right skills, to guide tourists in the Mara? Nobody can go to China and do this. And so I want to agree with you that we need to relook at the way we engage these so-called superpowers. I want to give you an interesting story on what I saw in Australia. Huawei Technologies company has actually been banned from doing business in Australia because of unethical business engagements. But when it comes to Kenya, I've not seen the Kenya Bureau of Standards applying, the same kind of standard where you say the Chinese goods that are substandard should actually be blocked from entering the Kenyan market. We have given the Chinese a free check. We have exposed our people. The kind of torches you find in the streets. People buy them. They last 1 week. they are off. And the people are losing money. Yeah. And these are poor Kenyans. So I think really the government has not done much in terms of putting standards of engagement between us and the Chinese. And I think seeing this story on page 8 should be a wake-up call to the to the government that we should not surrender our sovereignty to the Chinese. To the Chinese. Yes.
None of you is actually mentioning the ill practice that we're talking about. Of course, also looking at the People Daily, this was way back, where now the employees were crying foul about how they're being treated by the Chinese. They cannot even share the same table, of course, in the restaurants with the Chinese as well. Right now, we're really fighting against racism, you know, worldwide, that is raising its ugly head again. But this is how also Kenyans are being treated in their own country. Yeah. Right. So I think we should speak to this. And if we have intellectual property that is being or business, unethical business practices, if we are calling ourselves as a country who we regard ourselves in high esteem and of course following the rule of law, those are questions that we need to actually address.
What I'm seeing in that headline there, it's against, you know, in 2007 this country enacted 3 labor relations laws that were meant to guard and to protect employees from this kind of abuse. And I think the victims, you know, the Kenyan employees who are being mistreated should invoke, you know, the powers of the Labor and Employment Court. You know, we created specific High Court division that was to protect the rights of workers. And I'm sure maybe this is, I want to make an appeal to the victims that they should look at some human rights bodies that can offer pro bono services for these Kenyans. They go to court. Actually, they should sue for damages because we shouldn't allow a foreign enterprise to come and mistreat our own Kenyans the way the Chinese are doing. Really, we cannot be an independent country and then we have our own being treated like third-class citizens by a foreign company in our own country. It's not right.
Right, thank you. Right. Let's hear from Jeremiah Kioni. We'll come to you.
It is certainly an insult to all of us when if you are to allow our Kenyans to be treated in a manner that is reported in the media. And I want to agree that some perhaps even civic education to our people, our workers, is necessary so that they can know that there are laws that protect them. And if these issues are also taken to court, we should be able to ensure that that mistreatment is not there. Of course, the Chinese also, I think it also needs to be taken at a higher level. The Chinese government needs to be informed of that misbehavior by their own nationals, because we really want good relationships. We would want to benefit from what we can from the Chinese, but they should do it with all the respect that they should accord to our people. We wouldn't do this when we go to China. They will actually flog us into their courts.
Thank you.
They are very, very protective of their territory, and I think we should not, we shouldn't give them that highway. We have also, I think our security system is also a little bit reluctant. Even when cases are reported, they do not take them that seriously. It's like there is still some might within our system that some of us can still be good slaves to even the Chinese. I think we need to make sure that that might is not allowed to continue developing among the Chinese. They are moving fast.
Right, thank you. Yeah. Governor Mudomenjuki.
Okay. Yeah, thanks. You know, Debarl, Chinese aggression in business is not only found in Africa and in Kenya in particular. It's all over the world. If you go to America, most of the gadgets that are used there, they're Chinese. You stay to UK, it's the same thing. But it is us, the Kenyans, who have allowed Chinese to give us the low standards, because the products are normally made in different standards depending on the market. I don't know this affordability, but we have accepted the low quality standards posing as affordable. Yet they're so expensive because, as the Senator Mugeni has put it, you can have a gadget that you dispose of after a few days, yet you paid money for it and you pick another one. You look at the cycle at the end of the year, you've used more money that you'd have used to buy the expensive one. Yeah. And because of allowing this to be a dumping ground for those cheap imports, the Chinese has really flooded this market, because guys who bring in those low quality goods, they are Kenyan importers. Of course, it's followed up by Chinese who want to set up there and continue producing when they see the demand is so high. And you know, come easy, go easy. And you do not expect them not to flood here, because it's a business that is giving them a very high turnover. However, the recent now cultural mix-up of the Chinese culture and ours in terms of business culture is what's really worrying, because as much as they do business with UK and the US, there are lines that are drawn for them they cannot cross. They remain professional, they maintain the ethics that are there for business in America and US. But here they cut corners, just like maybe they have been shown by some Kenyan businessmen. So we are the ones to blame for some of these behaviors, because when they pick them, they perfect them, and then we go back to blame them. Why should we allow Chinese to flood the River Road and Luduli Avenue that our Kenyan business people used to earn a levy? It is because both the agencies of like Kenya Bureau of Standards, KRA, very much aware of what is happening. What do they do about it? How much have they have they taken in custody and say, we cannot accept this, this is substandard, please go back? Thank you. Let's hear from Senator Pogisio. Lastly,
well, let's just call it corruption. Let's just say it's a continuation of the corruption and the dragon of corruption and how far it has gone into our country. Not only do people get their visas the way we have talked about, but also being licensed to do businesses they should have no business doing. Like it's been said, how do you have somebody registered as a tour guide or even a tour company owned wholly by Chinese who have just come recently, who are just on visa? You know, you can't believe that that's happening. But because of the way that we have allowed corruption in every field, we've allowed people to just substandard things come into the country. The same way we clear them is the same way we clear the labor, the same way that anyway we have all these quacks and so on. So we must address these issues of labor, first of all, allowing our people to be sovereign in their own country. Our labor is maybe cheap to get, but the sovereignty of our people should not be insulted by somebody coming here and trying to segregate our people. So we think we just need to be tough on the issue of who is allowed to work and why should they have companies that are wholly owned by Chinese. Tour businesses should be ventures, should be joint ventures, if at all to be allowed, so that you can bring tourists and have the Kenyans do the guiding and the direction of things like that. But again, because we are in need, we tend to negotiate from a position of weakness, because we feel that we are the ones who need, we need the Chinese or whatever, whoever else is to come here. So I just do believe that we need to stand our ground and protect our sovereignty. In doing business, so that we don't have all this business of being, disregarded and even being lowered sometimes in our own country.
Thank you. Thank you very much. All right, let's see what we have in the highlights for you. Of course, also this will act as a segue to a discussion this morning, which is up next. IEBC Chairman Wafula Chebukati insists that the commissioners resigned in word and deed. 43% of Kenyans say the country is headed in the right direction, 40 say in the wrong direction. And Pope Francis leaves Ireland after begging for forgiveness for abuse case. Now, a majority of Kenyans believe that the country is headed in the right direction, even as President Uhuru Kenyatta intensifies the fight against corruption. A survey released by Paul Farm Infotrack shows that most Kenyans, about 43%, were happy with the state of the economy, peace in the country, and the unity between the government and the opposition. However, there is an almost equally high number of Kenyans who think Kenya is headed in the wrong direction at 40%, just 3 percentage points lower. And TV's Silas Apollos starts off.
The poll, whose result was released today, mirrors what Infotrack CEO Angela Mbitho says is a worrying trend and which should be of a great concern to the government.
4%. And your question then is,
Mbitho says that this is because while on the surface a majority of Kenyans were content with the way the country was being run, those who of the contrary opinion were still of a significant number. This is beside the fact that ills like corruption, unemployment, poverty, the high cost of living was still of great concern to a majority of Kenyans.
I think generally for our leadership and even for us as Kenyans of discernment, this is not a good picture, because ideally the country should be headed, with a majority feeling that it is headed in the right direction.
Of the over 1,000 respondents surveyed, 58% cited corruption as the issue of great concern in the country. Another 57% said it was the high cost of living, with 19% citing unemployment, against 10% of the respondents who said they were most afraid of poverty. Interestingly, only 2% of those polled were of the opinion that the deputy president had helped the president steer the country towards the right direction. Those who are of the opinion that Kenya was headed in the wrong direction blame President Uhuru Kenyatta, NASA leader Raila Odinga, and governors.
The key thing we see here across the board, if I flip back, is that the economy is an issue for us, and it's a message that our leadership should take very seriously. And the other one is good governance and how the leadership of this country deals with corruption.
The survey also shows that most Kenyans were in support of the fight against corruption, though a good number was still skeptical on whether the peace pact signed between Jubilee and NASA would help rid the country of corruption. A majority of those surveyed say they support the ongoing demolitions at 64% against those who are opposed to it, a plus to the Nairobi regeneration team led by Governor Mike Sonko.
So Kenyans have no sympathy. The ones who have sympathy for those who have stolen public money, your money, is probably only 4%. And maybe it's not even sympathy, maybe their no is informed by something else.
Most Kenyans were also in support of the handshake between President Uhuru Kenyatta and Raila Odinga at 87%, with only 7% opposed to it. Those in support said it will help promote peace, stabilize the economy, and provide and promote inclusivity. Silas Apollo, NTV.
Now, Zimbabwe's President Emmerson Mnangagwa has urged his compatriots to unite and focus on holding or helping the economy to grow following a disputed election that was challenged by his main rival. In his inauguration speech at the National Stadium in the capital Harare, Mnangagwa implored Zimbabweans to focus on office today. We shall be discussing this and a raft of other issues on the other side of the break. Don't go away. You're watching This Is a Point here on AM Live. We continue with the conversation. Now, the goings on at the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission border on the comedy of the absurd. Unfortunately, IEBC is not the institution where one can allow that tomfoolery to play out. It is an institution charged with the sacred duty of presiding over elections, determining the leadership of the nation from the grassroots to the top. It must be beyond reproach. Its dignity must be jealously guarded. Now, on Friday, two commissioners, Ms. Connie Maina and Margaret Mwachanya, who had quit the commission in March, returned to office, presumably to assume their previous duties. This is not acceptable at all. First, it is immoral for the two commissioners to purport to resume duty after a 5-month hiatus and having left the commission acrimoniously with blistering attacks on the chairman and the institution. It's marks of contempt of the public and the institution itself. Does it mean they have been earning from the public office without working? Doesn't that amount to fraud, in which case punishable? What happened to integrity and personal dignity? An argument will be advanced that the High Court recently ruled the resignation of the commissioners, including Paul Kurgat, was unprocedural, hence cannot stand in law. Fair enough, but legalese aside, in practice, the mere fact that one puts in a letter of resignation and in this case makes a public pronouncement about it is a statement of discontent with an institution, hence cannot continue working there. It is a matter of public service which requires public trust. Once an individual declares he or she has no faith in an institution, how can the public trust him or her to work there and deliver on the mission? Mr. Chebukati has to clear the air over the status of the two commissioners. Institutions must be respected. Individuals who do not exhibit personal integrity should not be allowed to serve in public office. Importantly, it is time to commence the process of remaking IEBC. It cannot be allowed to continue as it is. And this is what we want to discuss this morning with our panelists here, IEBC House of Comedy. Of course, we've seen and we're always waiting for the other shoe to drop as far as IEBC is concerned. I'm holding court this morning with Professor Anyang' Nyong'o, if you're joining us this morning, who is the governor of Kisumu, also Okongo Omogeni, senator of Nyamira. We do have with us Governor Muthoni Njuki, who is the governor of Tharaka Nithi, also Jeremiah Kioni, who is a member of parliament from Daragwa and the chair of CRC in the National Assembly. Also, we do have with us as well Senator Samuel Pogisio, who is a senator from West Pokot. Just let's turn our focus and begin with what is happening in IEBC. So today is a day we eagerly await to see if Connie and Margaret will actually be in office. So questions that are being asked by Kenyans. Is IEBC a kiosk?
Well, look, I don't know what those judges were looking at, but if I were them, I would have looked at Chapter 6 of the Constitution.
Yes.
These people behave in accordance and in line with what is demanded of them as public officers in Chapter 6 of the Constitution. I mean, listening to you, I'm reminded that responsibility of leadership, 73(1), authority assigned to a state officer, is a public trust to be exercised in a manner that demonstrates respect for the people. Demonstrates respect for the people. Look, the people of Kenya are not idiots. These guys resigned, condemned their leaders in the IEBC, and said they were leaving, and they've been out for so long. Now, coming back without even apologizing to the people of Kenya and assuming things are definitely unconstitutional. So what kind of lawyers are those who are sending back those in? What law are they saying that they didn't break? They, by just going back, they break. I think somebody should go back to court and stop them from holding that office, or those officers, just by going back to Chapter 6 of the Constitution. This is a fundamental law of the land. And I've not read the whole I've not quoted the whole of Chapter 6, but I'm telling you, we can find so many articles here in the Constitution in Chapter 6, which will stop them from going back to the office. I mean, that's enough. Yeah.
All right. Does it, what you actually say here is leadership and integrity authority assigned to a state officer is a public trust to be exercised in a manner that is consistent with the purpose and object of the Constitution, demonstrates respect for the people. Respect for the people. That's why we ask, is IEBC a kiosk where you can just walk in and out when you really want? You know, after 5 months you find, yes, I really need to go back because there was maybe this particular ruling in their favor. Okongo Omogeni.
I think we are really trying to lower the bar here, because after we passed the Constitution in 2010, we had really raised the bar.
Yes.
And, you know, remember the former Deputy President of the Supreme Court, Nancy Baraza, was removed from office because she merely pinched the nose of a watchman in village market. Now, compare that with a case we have where an holder of a constitutional commission deserts office for 4 months, you know, April, May, June, July, 4 months. Then they wake up in the month of August and say they want to walk back to office. I mean, really that is unacceptable. And, you know, in a proper working nation, these are people who should be barred actually for their entire life, of their lifetime, from holding any public office, because they must take their office to be really offices of higher calling. A person of integrity, and that's what Professor Nyang' Nyong'o said. Chapter 6, if you read the heading of that chapter, it's leadership and integrity chapter. So if you are a person of integrity, the moment you announce to the whole country, it was in public. It's not like the former IEBC commissioners who we are told resigned in Harambee House. They issued a statement to the nation, and they told the nation that we have resigned our positions. You can't just wake up one day and walk back into your office and say, now I am back. Actually, if you read Article 75, Conduct of State Officers, it says, if you read 75D, you should not behave in a manner that is demeaning to the office one holds. It's there, 75D. So, really, which other way can you demean the office you hold than to tell the public, have resigned, have gone, you stay 4 months and then you walk back again and say, now I'm back again. Finally, I mean, even if they wanted to go back, and I want to appeal to my colleagues, this is one matter where we should act in the best interest of this nation. Remember that this is something that can have some, you know, it's like you cough and many people will catch a cold. There will be so many members of staff in other organizations who will say, now, when MD, I adopted to resign, but now I want to come back. And you have been away for 4 months. So this is one area where I want to appeal to my colleagues in the National Assembly. If these gentle ladies and gentlemen insist that they want to go back, then we should invoke Article 251, removal from office of people who hold constitutional offices. And it says, if you read 251B, you can be removed from office for gross misconduct. For gross misconduct. There can never be a better way of defining gross misconduct than looking at the behavior of these 4 commissioners. Once you announce to the country that I've resigned, I've gone, you stay out of office for 4 months without any explanation, and then you come back and say, I want to go back to office. That is a clinical case of somebody who has behaved in a manner that can be described as gross misconduct. And we should not let this to go. I mean, it actually pains and irritates that somebody can even think, not even work, can even think of issuing a statement that they want to go back to IEBC as commissioners. We should not allow it. As a country, we must say a big no to this kind of misbehavior.
And of course, hearing from you also, Jeremiah Kioni, you can tell us, could this also be maybe the rhyme and reason they're going back? Because we know that they made a comeback last week, and the other institution, that is IEBC, close to 2 million shillings in an unsupported expenditures they incurred. This is according to the internal audit from the Auditor General as well.
Debarl, the committee I share, we had a session with IEBC.
In February?
A little bit after February, I think sometimes in the month of May, not February, May.
Yes.
And when we went through the session, one of the things that came out from the 3 commissioners that have been working at IEBC was that one of the things that may have triggered the desire for the others to leave as they had left, and I think they left. I have no doubt in my mind that they have no room within IEBC. is that there was a 4.6 billion shillings query that required to be answered. And according to the what was told to us, and it is on the Hansard, is that perhaps the commissioners who had left had intended to derail the auditing and perhaps the, trying the scrutiny of how 4.6 billion shillings was spent within IEBC. That came from the commissioners that time during our meeting. And also, of course, then also there was that issue of we as Parliament needed to quickly make sure that IEBC is functioning. And I'm not sure that this return has not been triggered by a draft bill that is already in the process from our committee that seeks to just revise the quorum of the commission from 5 to 3. Because what happened when there were 9, the quorum was 5. Mm-hmm. When the number was reduced to 7, the quorum was still retained at 5. And we thought as a committee, one of the ways to try and break this deadlock quickly is just to lower the quorum to 3. So that, and once you come to 3, it wasn't for purposes of making these 3 commissioners function, but it was for purposes of getting the commissioner functioning within a 3. And that bill is in the process, headed perhaps for publication shortly. And I have a feeling that that may have triggered this desire for these other ones to come back. And because we were trying to tell them we still can function, even without 3. And also trying to deal with whatever political game is being played somewhere where we do not understand. We needed to get the commission functioning. So, but as my colleagues have said, it is certainly not in the interest of this country to allow people behaving this way, to be allowed back into office, for the reason that one is against the Constitution. There are clear provisions in the Constitution that can be cited, and 2, will be setting a very bad precedent for this country, and 3, it is total disrespect for all of us as Kenyans. You can't go and say, I cannot come here and say, I will never appear again on AM Live on Monday. And then the following Monday I show up like nothing has happened. It is really bad manners to my colleagues who also wake up very early, and also for the people who wake up to few and listen to us. And that speaks volumes about Chapter 6. And Chapter 6 is just about that. Your behavior, the way even your demeanor, the way you hold yourself when you've been trusted with public office should be such that it doesn't insult Kenyans and doesn't demean us in the eyes of other persons who look at Kenya as an example. So I want to confirm, agree with my colleagues that looking at very many articles of the Constitution, they cannot hold office. My son is a second-year law student, and he asked me, really? Can the judge say that these people are not resigned? And I mean, it was a really bizarre thing to see that kind of judgment coming from whoever it is that gave that judgment. So as a committee, we have the role of making sure that these constitutional commissions are in place. And I can tell you that we have moved to that. If we still have left room for parties that would want to nominate more, they still can nominate, and the process can be put in place. But what we have said is a quorum of 3, when you have 7, is a reasonable thing. So that if we were to just provide for a quorum of 3, the country functions, IEBC functions. We stop putting Kenya in a spin. And if people want to play politics with it, they can then play politics with the other 4 when they want to appoint them.
All right. Could it be maybe that the query that you now raise about 4.6 billion shillings, first, maybe they wanted to, scuttle the whole process of IEBC, they go home, then we don't get maybe an interrogation about this 4.6 billion, and this didn't really work out for them. Right? It was just a fig leaf, maybe to try and cover up so that the investigation will not be ongoing. So we can read much into this resignation in the first place.
That was actually confirmed by the 3 commissioners. They said the intention was to disband the IEBC, so that the issue of 4.6 was lost. Now that these 3 commissioners held back, and the Auditor General is able to come and ask questions, and perhaps the commissioners are able to point as to who should answer the the questions raised, it's likely that, in fact, let me not say likely, in my mind, it's not in doubt. There is a need to try and cover up on the 4.6 billion shillings, and there is also an attempt to make sure that the commission does not function. Because once they come back, they then sit in the plenary. The three commissioners who have been running the commission in the way they have been running it did not have quorum to run the plenary, only.
Thank you.
So they will have denied them an opportunity to transact within the plenary because they'll come and crowd it. Now that we are saying a quorum of 3 is enough to run the plenary.
Right. Let's say from Governor Muthoni Njuki, your input on this.
Debarl and this panel, I think there was emotions acting without benefit of intellect. Because you cannot resign in public and then the following day or after a few months you say, we want to be back on this thing. However, allow me to say that we must stop treating the symptoms and focus on the real problem. Because what the member of Daragwa has told us clearly, there was an illegality for the last 5 months, and someone should have taken action. Because for 5 months, the commission has been acting without the quorum, and they have done some of the things that should not have been done without that quorum, including conducting an election. What the committee for my colleague Kioni did last week should have happened 5 months ago. Why was it allowed for the commission to actually function for 5 months with only 3 commissioners, when they used to be 7, and we used to have a CEO who is also out of the office? You can imagine a situation whereby a reduction from 8 or 9 all the way to 3, and they're left to function as if nothing is happening. What was the motivation behind these people leaving the office at that particular time? I want to imagine that from the inside that they must have seen that the situation here is so bad that there is no remedy. This thing has to be disbanded. And therefore, since it's not being disbanded, I've given information, our walkout will make this thing be disbanded as per se. But the procedure that was followed in their leaving may be what is questionable. Because today I have heard members of parliament to say that if this and this does not happen, I'm leaving. Even if you stand in a podium at KICC and say that I am no longer the member of parliament for Daragwa, until you give your letter to the speaker and say this is my resignation, it will not happen. If you take your letter and give it to the office of the constituency, it will not happen. It will just therefore a question of legality vis-a-vis moral authority. Is it moral? Is it legal? That is what the question is all about. And therefore, for the judge of, because the guy who went to court wanted IEBC to be disbanded or to be rendered non-functional because it operated without a quorum. Yes. But the judge said, no, this quorum. This quorum because these people did not resign in the right way. They resigned to the wrong person. They should have resigned to the appointing authority. And this should have happened. Therefore, it means that there are things we should have addressed which we do not address in this particular case. So as much as I do not approve of their morality in terms of coming back and telling Kenyans, yes, we are back, legally, had they resigned? Legally, what is the way forward? And lastly, on the issue of the money that is purported to have been lost, the audit, is it assumed that the 4.6 billion was lost due to probably misappropriation or a role played by these 3? Is it possible also it's been played by all of them, or the 3, not the 3 who resigned, or is it possible it may be been all of them, or even the 3 who are sitting at the moment? Because only the Auditor General can be able to say there's a problem here, who is responsible in this particular case. So bottom line, whether they come back, whether they don't come back, that IEBC is a shame to this nation, and it should be disbanded by all means. Instead of Kioni telling us that they will make the 3 function, why should they function? Yes. When you have a situation whereby it used to be 8 or 7, and then now you're 3, there must be a problem. So they should just all of them go, and we have a fresh one. Even though that does not guarantee Kenya to have put to rest that vicious cycle of IEBC and changing names for that electoral body all the time. We must look for a permanent solution. Because my colleagues, you can bear me witness that Kivuito used to be there, he came and went. Cheson used to be there, he came and went. Isa Kasan came and went. Now Chebukati is going. I mean, what really is the problem? Is it these people? Is it the office? We must treat really the disease, not the symptoms.
Let's say from Pogiso, we'll come to you, Professor.
Yes, well, even a kiosk closes sometimes. You may want to go there. It's closed. This one is amazing. I think there are certain basic things that you can ask about, even just ordinary labor.
Yes.
How do you then describe the 4 months that they were away? Was that annual leave? How do you call that time when you decided to leave? Secondly, what about this group think? This group think, where 3 of your commissioners decide to act together. You know that already is character. You see, is there independence in the independence of that commission? Is there really independence? Can somebody vote their own conscience in that commission? How do 3 people decide? Let's get out and then look for each other later and say, let's go back in together.
Yes.
Those are some of the things that you ask. I mean, where is this character? And leadership is about character, by the way. Very little about whatever development you've done. It's about character. And so I would wish that that Kenyans stand firm on these things. Already, IEBC has rendered itself totally unreliable and untrustworthy, already in its own activities. So how do you now, with this guy, commissioners getting out and coming in, say we can entrust our election and boundaries which are coming in next year to people who are so very basically totally uncontrolled? I mean, they have these issues within themselves. So I don't think we should allow it, and I don't know about their return, whether it can actually hold any water. I want to suggest that the people of Kenya refuse this people to come in. And of course, legislation is there. Legislators are going to have to do their work. The process of removing these commissioners, if they were not satisfied with removing themselves, they should be assisted by the formal way of removing commissioners.
But we must, on the way back,
could we hear from
Professor? We must, as readers, ensure that we are not played. Because I think these 3 commissioners wants to play us into almost what I have heard my governor of Tharaka allude to, where we are put in a spin, we disband Tharaka Nithi, where we are put into a spin and we disband the whole commission. We have by-elections in the country that's supposed to be run. And we get ourselves in the confusion that perhaps these 3 intended from the beginning with whoever was their master. So I think it is important, and this is why we said, why don't we just reduce the quorum to 3? You have been functioning, and I think I need to give this rider. What we got, what in our engagement with the IEBC commissioners, the 3, is that they have never undertaken that function which requires the quorum of 5. And the function that requires the quorum of 5 is the plenaries. But the normal functioning of IEBC, and this had been, interpretation had been given to them and they shared with us, they could continue functioning for as long as they never hold a plenary.
Thank you.
But for them to hold the plenary, and some of the issues that require plenary include the boundaries issue, they need a quorum. And that is why, if we now disband the IEBC and start constituting another one, we are likely to get ourselves in trouble with the timelines of the boundaries issue.
Thank you.
So we really have to allow, and this bill was meant to bring this kind of debate, because we were just quiet.
Thank you. Let's hear from Professor.
I like the spirit of the Assembly in trying to find a solution which is going to help Kenyans. I think that's very important. But I think Governor Njoki has made a very important point, which I missed at the beginning, that we should distinguish between the judicial action by the judges, which is purely based on law, justice according to law, which I agree with, that within the confines of the law, that resignation only takes effect if you resign to the right authority or the right channel. That I agree with. The judges were looking at the law, as judges usually do. Having said that, then we said, but that is not enough. These were public officials who should conduct themselves according to the Constitution. So although the judges have made that decision, we come back to these individuals and ask them, now fine, the judge has said you didn't resign to the right, why didn't you yourself, at that material time, not take your resignation to the right place? You took it to the court of conscience of the Kenyan people, and you said you have resigned.
Yes.
Now, come back to the court of conscience of Kenyan people and tell us why you are going back. Because you are going back has some funny things in it.
Yes.
And this is what we are saying, that it now involves in looking at the behavior of the commissioners in general. But at least the three who remained were brave enough to say, look, we must fix this IEBC. And they have remained there to fight the battle for 4 months. These other ones who resigned have no business whatsoever coming back to mess up the business of these three, because at least they've been there responsible for the institution.
And they actually said, Professor, if you allow me, that they want the 4.6 billion audit done when they are there.
Fantastic. Now
they didn't abandon.
Now we come back,
which raises an eyebrow.
Which brings it another issue. These ones who resigned, they cannot get away with it because Article 226 of the Constitution binds them to be responsible for that for that money. Is it 225? 226.5.
If the holder of a public office.
If the holder of a public office, including a political office, directs or approves the use of public funds contrary to law or instructions, the person is liable for any loss arising from that use and shall make good the loss, whether the person remains the holder of the office or not.
Yes.
So wherever they are, they will have to answer for this 256. So I think these guys are going back, precisely as Governor Juke said, to be in that place, so that they can, and I think the Member of Parliament has also made it very clear, so that when this thing is discussed, they can ruffle the waters and cause confusion, so that they can use the office now to defend themselves. And I think the best thing Kenyans should say, stay out of the office, let us investigate the 256. If then you are found innocent, then you can say, look.
Right, but let's see also where the public perception is as far as the recent opinion poll that was just released yesterday by Infotrack. The IEBC to disband or not, that's the question. And we have them here. They say public confidence with the IEBC is currently low at 20%. 41% of Kenyans don't have any confidence at all in the IEBC. 51% of Kenyans still support the resignation of the three the IEBC commissioners, and essentially will not wish to see their return.
Exactly.
Further still, majority of Kenyans, 53%, would like to see the IEBC fully disbanded and formed afresh. Then indeed 45% of Kenyans don't have confidence in the IEBC as currently constituted to deliver credible election. And of course you can see how it goes there. Do you support the recent resignation of the three IEBC commissioners? Yes, the majority there, 51%. No, we have them here at red, 35%, and do not know, a slice of 13 there. Do you think the IEBC should be completely disbanded? There is a pie chart as well. So where we are right now, should it just disband IEBC?
I think it should be disbanded, but let us do this.
How many times are we disbanding this IEBC?
But let me say this.
It looks like a tattered cloth now. Banded here, banded there, banded everywhere.
No, let me say this. Look, I think Jeremiah has a point here. There are certain items in the agenda of the IEBC which, if it is disbanded now, if you said about the three were there, could disrupt the political life in this country. Yes, that I respect. But then, why is it that the IEBC has been unstable? My theory is the following. You may agree with me or not. So long as we think this country, this nation, can be governed by a presidential system of government, when we know that we have a plural society, culturally, racially, religiously, ethnically, we should be governed through a parliamentary system of government, which will not lay so much stress on the IEBC. The persons who spoil the IEBC are those running for the presidency, not the MPs and the MCAs and so on. But a parliamentary system of government will remove all these things to multiple political parties, which will check themselves, and will then have a referee of only 3 people, by the way. In most countries, it used to be 1. during Montgomery's time. To me, 3 people are enough to run an IBC if you have a parliamentary system of government. And we'll have less expenditure for an IBC, less fracturing of the IBC, a much more efficient electoral system, and a much more legitimate government produced after such elections. Let us do away with the presidential system, and then we'll sort out all these IBC problems much easier.
Right, thank you. Let's say from Congo.
Yeah, I think the first comment should be on this issue of quorum. And I think what the judge was saying in petition number 212 of 2018 is drawing a comparison between what the IBC Act says in terms of quorum and what the Constitution says. And I think what the judge ruled is that under Article 250 of the Constitution, the minimum number of commissioners in any constitutional commission should be 3. Therefore, taking into account the principle that the Constitution is the supreme law of the land, the 3 commissioners at IBC can continue running the commission. And I think I cannot fault the judge in that interpretation. So the 3, as currently constituted, can continue running business at IBC. But I think the issue that Honorable Kion is raising is that we need some reform. You know, Article 250 says that Parliament can come up with a law that puts into place a criteria on how commissioners into any constitutional commission are appointed.
Yes.
I think what we have currently is a situation where a panel interviews applicants and then they are recommended for appointment to the president. But I think we need to relook at that framework and maybe come with a framework that gives political parties a say in the appointment of the commissioners. So I think we have a window here to either decide that for purposes of institutional memory, we can retain the 3, but fill the 4 using a new legal framework. But put a proviso that when their term comes to an end, then the vacancies for the other 3 will be filled in accordance with a new legal framework. I think the issue of entirely disbanding the commission may not be the right way to go, but we need to reform the law on appointment of the 7 commissioners.
And of course, Mudavadi accuses former electoral commissioners of mischief. The question maybe we should be asking is, who is sending these 2 commissioners back to IBC? Because who is sending? Maybe it is not really them that they are actually doing it out of their own volition. Who is sending them back there? Exactly that will be the question. Let's hear from Governor Muthoni Njuki.
Before I wade into the murky waters of the IEBC, there's something that my colleague, the governor of Kisumu, my respected senior, not in governorship but in age and in law, has said I should not go and challenge. Because yes, I agree, the parliamentary system of government may allow us to have 3 commissioners, but that should not be the only reason for us to go to the parliamentary system of government. The presidential system we have at the moment is working so well, and it is important for the governor to let Kenyans know what else is in the parliamentary system of government. It will mean that you elect a president from parliament, not by the people themselves directly. That is one of the implications of what is implied. It is a total change in the way the Kenyans are used to electing leaders and how they used to be governed. And therefore, it is one of the reasons why that kind of change cannot take place unless we have a referendum which will locate, which I don't see it happening in the near future. Back to the IEBC. The commissioners left because there is a problem they wanted addressed. Of course, for 5 months it was not addressed. Is there a possibility they have decided to go back and fight from inside? Because probably what they expected as a benefit to the Kenyans did not happen. I'm not being the devil's advocate here, but I want to remind you, we are looking at the 3 who left the other day through a press conference. But there's one who left earlier, even before the rerun. The one who went to America, Akombe.
Yes.
So we are talking about, and there's also a CEO who is out. So we are talking about out of 5. Of course, the 5th one is being forced out by the chair, but the 4 left their own goodwill. Is it a possibility that they were protesting? Is it something they have waited for things to happen, nothing is happening, they have decided, let's march back and fight from inside? But how legal is it for them to actually be able to fight from inside? And therefore, to think that this commission can be reconstituted to have 3 and retain the 3 that are there, I think it's an insult to the Kenyans. There should be a total cleanup.
Total cleanup.
And we get new people in that office so that, because when Kenyans speak, you should listen to them. You've seen that survey you've just showed there.
Yes.
They say 20% have confidence in the IEBC. Then why are we saying that we can ignore 80% who are saying let's disband it? I mean, that is going against the people we represent. It's important for us to listen to them and say this is the will of the people. Let's have a new commission.
But what then will be democracy? If the 50% also they're saying they should go home, we have a 20%. You go with the 50 or you go with the 20?
Of course, democracy, you know, states that majority always have their way and minority will have their say.
Okay. All right.
So just the governor has had this.
No, let's hear from. Let the senator have his way. Let the senator have his way now.
His way now.
And I think the governor is really anticipating a debate on the issue of, presidential and
parliamentary
systems. I think that he can wait for that time. Yeah. The truth is that these people have a seconded duty. You know, if you resign and you actually leave the scene, you've gone. Yeah. And I think because these people literally left the scene, so I'm not going back there, but I'm just going back to the place where we're saying this organization is already on the way to disbanding itself. Yeah. It's only a small push and it's gone. Because look at the way it is now. There's no CEO, there are no 4 commissioners, there are not 3 commissioners.
They have an acting CEO.
You know, well, I'm just saying, well, acting CEO is. So basically we're saying that they're already in a state that cannot be credible to deliver, especially on the next agenda, which is the boundaries and so on. That is a very critical matter.
Yes.
It's a very highly contested matter, and it requires people who are committed. And so this guy is coming back, people who can leave anytime, who can jump ship anytime, cannot be trusted to do especially our boundaries. They cannot be trusted. However, since the legalese and so on, the lawyers will help us. I don't know how easy it is, but to disband, whether it's easy to disband or to keep patching it. And because if you keep patching it, you're really taking a risk, because general elections will be here soon, and we have a repeat of the issues that we've had. So I am of the opinion that we join those who are saying we don't have any faith in this organization. We have very little faith, and therefore look to disband it. Now the issues about the quorum. And I agree with MP here, Honorable Kioni, because actually for 7-member commission, I think the quorum here is too high. We need to reduce that quorum to make it easy for work to be done, so that there is no lack of quorum in this particular incident. But that brings the issue of commitment. If there are 7 of you, at one point in time, you should really try and be there, the number that is required, so that you don't have, where do they go? I mean, they might be out of the country, but can you all go at the same time? We should just be able to commit ourselves to doing this kind of work with the commitment of having 3. We do have those issues in Parliament where sometimes there is no quorum, even in a small committee. It's the same issue of commitment. But you know, in Parliament sometimes it's because you're in more than one committee and you're running all over trying to sort out your issues. Senate has 9 members per committee and the quorum is 3. So I mean, it's very easy to accept that this is actually 3.
All right, but should they be disbanded? And of course now they're in the face of trying to overhaul or maybe to reform IEBC, right? Because we have also this particular statement from Chebukati. They're proposing maybe to move also from the anniversary towers. The proposed acquisition of the commissioners on premises will not only cut the high recurrent cost of office spent, but also the cost of hiring other venues for training, meetings with stakeholders and storage. This is according to Chebukati. He's also insisting on the use of Hansard, right? So that we don't have leakages like we've always had, or people now also are flinching on their statements. So we have Hansard also inside, of course, the operations of IEBC moving forward. This is in light of the leakages that we saw coming to the public domain between the CEO and the chairman.
Debarl, again, and I'm not here to speak on behalf of IEBC. In fact, when we had a sitting with them, I did ask them whether they have a way of letting Kenyans know what is happening at IEBC, because they have quite a lot of good things that they shared with us. And when you sit and listen to them, you would want to appreciate that really they appreciate the difficulties that are there, they appreciate the attitude Kenyans have towards them. But even today, Debarl, if you were to ask whether Parliament should be disbanded, if you were to ask Kenyans whether Parliament should be disbanded, you're likely to hear yes. And so when you hear the yes from people saying disband IEBC, you need to be careful. The feeling is that you are letting us down, but we need to sober up a bit. We have to avoid, we could end up doing, just like the governor is saying, we could end up being emotional to a point where we become reckless. If we disband IEBC today, one is that the three commissioners would have to accept to leave. If they don't, they will subject us to a tribunal, and the process will take quite some while. If we look at the time that we have to deal with the boundaries, we have census coming next year, we have the elections coming, we have by-elections that are ongoing. We have to be a little bit more responsible as leaders and find what is the best, what's in the best interest of this country. And I believe that in the best, for this country to continue functioning, we need the IEBC, and we need to allow those who are in office and those who are bold enough to be to receive all the harsh words that we have for them are still there. We need to make sure that the country functions by allowing this commission to function. And this was the reasoning of the committee. Even as you seek to fill in the other four, and you can bring in the other four to then bring the changes that you want. I want to agree with the Senator Mungeni that we now need to think of how do we bring in, what kind of selection procedure do we follow. This issue of the panel from the Christians and the rest seems to have worked for that time if it worked. But I think it is one of the areas that needs to be addressed now. And if we were to sober up and think a little and work with the timelines, and we sat with IEBC and they gave us those times, getting the three home will be worse off in this country. We would actually have played in the hearts of those people, because behind the scenes there is a team of political people who thought by sending these ones home this would happen, which did not happen. Now they are trying to bring them back to try and see whether they can start the game afresh. And we must make sure that that does not happen. And I want to say it again.
There is a danger there.
I want to say it again. Our proposing that we reduce the quorum to 3 in line with what the Constitution says is what has triggered all this. Try rush back. These guys are likely to run away with what we never wanted them to run away with. And I think just to finish,
you're closing
they also shared with us, IEBC shared with us a survey that they had conducted through a professional body, and I think you should invite them to share it with you. And they were actually also astonished, amazed by the kind of answers they received. They thought that Kenyans are so unhappy with them that they should have left like yesterday.
Thank you.
But the report that they shared with us seems to say something different. While they had difficulties managing the elections and the perceptions, they are not doing as badly as quite a number of the persons in this panel would want us to think.
Thank you.
The Kenyans have those Kenyans who don't speak often think that they managed within that storm.
Thank you. Maybe we can get closing remarks from you, Professor Anyang' Nyong'o.
Well, I think for one, the country must be managed, must keep on moving. And two, we should strengthen our institution to make sure that men and women of integrity get in those institutions to run them well. The experience we have had with the IEBC is that we have managed to put men and women there who fail in the test of integrity, and we have men and women outside who also want to use those institutions for their own good and health matters all over ourselves. And I say myself that the system we have of electing presidents, systematically, if you study the IEBC over the last many years, is what has really brought us where we are. But
thank you.
Maybe I should write more about that so that I convince my...
And you should buy the book, Jeremiah Kioni.
About the benefit of having a
yeah, thank you. Okongo Mugeni, 30 seconds.
I think for me, we should not allow these 3 commissioners to just walk back to IEBC. And I think National Assembly, we should move with speed to ensure that we put in place a framework to fill in the 3 other vacancies. I think we need to rebuild public confidence in IEBC as soon as we can.
Thank you. Let's hear from Governor. Your closing remarks.
Yes, Debarl, allow me to digress a bit from what we discussed, because Debarl, I have a lot of respect for...
30 seconds, 30 seconds.
Yes, I have a lot of respect for Nation Media Group. That is why you invite me and I come here.
Yes.
And however, I want to put it on record, I can see something today on page 22.
Page 22?
Which I want to categorically state here, this is a misreporting. And it is important for Nation Media Group to get rid of itself of reporters who are biased and serve other people's interests or are politically involved in things that do not add any value to nation. Because at any one time, in the 4 days that we had the cultural festival, that I was in the same venue with my senator. I never saw him, I never heard of him. I finished the function which was officiated. The guest of honor was CES Culture, who is Hassan Nur Hassan, and you can talk to him today.
Thank you.
We never had any senator in that function. We finished the function, left at 4:30, and he must have come after we had left. So the issues of us being in the same meeting and having us part,
we will follow it.
Those are stage-managed things that should not really find their way into national news.
That is Uragate. All right. Uragates. Thank you. Okay. 30 seconds.
Are headed to Makueni. I don't know whether it's reported in the media. For them to go and benchmark, it's good to hear that there is one county that we can all copy from, and I'm happy to see that in our constituency we are already using this public participation model.
Thank you.
Which is very useful.
Thank you, Senator.
Yes, first of all, I'd like to join those who are mourning the great Senator McCain for the time, a great hero, well respected in the U.S. And I think that our leaders actually need to recognize veterans and great people who have passed on after fighting for a country, and I think that's one of the things. Finally, let me just say that on the issue that we've just discussed, the fight against corruption will bail us out, the fight against corruption. And the faces behind those who are trying to play with the IEBC commissioners, take them out, calm them in, should be unveiled.
Thank you. Thank you. Right, thank you, panelists. We really do appreciate, and we hope also the reforms in the IEBC will not be as this cartoon, as we leave you with this particular editorial cartoon that was drawn by Gado some few months ago. My director tells me we can't see it because the credits are rolling. Thank you very much for your valued company. I am Debarl Inea.